It's Pete Buttigieg against Ron DeSantis in this hypothetical 2024 presidential matchup. Today on Political Access, we're going to go through each state and find a winner. So let's jump right into this. Safe states are over a 10-point margin, likely 5 to 10 points. Lean under 5 points until 1 point or less. So how do I see this race going? Well, I think Ron DeSantis is probably the strongest candidate the Republicans have. He's going to get out a lot of that working class base that has drifted away from the Democrats, and he's not going to be as polarizing and off-putting in the suburbs. So people are not going to come out as much to vote against him. And as for Pete Buttigieg, he's the Secretary of Transportation. I think he would do just fine in a lot of the blue establishment Democratic areas. I do think they like him there. I'm talking about in the wealthier, higher educated areas along the coasts. I do think he would do better with the stereotypical type of elite voters. I don't think he is really super polarizing as of yet, but I don't really know if he would drive up turnout in the deep blue cities. I think he would do fine in the suburbs. The rural areas, he's going to try to speak to those voters. He's from Indiana, an industrial Rust Belt state. He tries to have a similar speech pattern to Obama, but I tend to think it's going to fall a lot flatter than he would like it to. And his turnout with black voters, that of course is going to be pretty low because he has really no appeal in the South and with those types of voters. But in my opinion, Buttigieg has kind of been propped up as the next big thing that we should be voting for in the future. It's almost like an artificial type of hype. Ron DeSantis' support seems much more organic to me. But then again, DeSantis is going to be viewed much more like the establishment than someone like Donald Trump would be. So we don't know exactly what his turnout would be. We don't know which of these candidates would accelerate which trends. How about in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas? How about in those Georgia suburbs? And how about in that former blue wall that Donald Trump was able to crack through in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania? We also don't know about vice presidential candidates. We don't know exactly the issues the candidates would run on. We don't know the national environment at the time. There's a lot of unknowns, but let's play it out anyway. And let's start in Alaska, and that I have is a safe for Ron DeSantis. Donald Trump was able to win it by over 10. I don't think DeSantis would really have a problem matching that kind of a margin. Maybe Alaska is trending toward the left, but it would still be at least 10 points for Ron DeSantis. Hawaii, on the other hand, any Democrat is going to win that by over 10 points, and that'd be very safe for Buttigieg. Let's go back up to the West Coast. Washington, Oregon, California. Similar to Hawaii, almost any Democrat is going to win these by over 10 points. Buttigieg wins these by a safe margin. Now, Ron DeSantis, he would probably do better than Trump did in all three of these states. And I think he would probably get under a 15-point margin in Oregon and probably Washington. But that's about the best I can say for Ron DeSantis, and that's relatively quite impressive for a Republican. But maybe Buttigieg does do stronger there, and he wins them by 19. Let's go on to Nevada. This will be the first competitive state. So it's not an easy call for me, but the state is trending a little bit to the right. There's a lot of blue-collar workers in Clark County. Obviously, the rural red counties, they're going to vote for DeSantis. Washoe County is going to be up for grabs. And do I think Pete Buttigieg would appeal to a lot of these workers and voters here? Well, after thinking about it for a little while, I ended up settling on a lean for Ron DeSantis. I think he would probably be able to win this by 2, maybe 3 points. Idaho, Utah, those will be safe for Ron DeSantis. How about Arizona? This state seems to be trending away from the Republicans. It almost seems like they're not going to be able to win any high-profile races here anymore unless these trends can reverse. And they would only need to reverse slightly. Trump won it the first time, he lost it the second time. The margin was pretty narrow, and I would have to think DeSantis could do 1 or 2 points better than Trump did, even though it's going to be 4 years later. And I do have DeSantis winning Arizona probably by 1 to 2 points. Montana, Wyoming, safe for DeSantis. Colorado, that'll be likely for Buttigieg. I think DeSantis would get this margin down under 10 points. Buttigieg, he's going to have enough appeal here because it is Colorado. It's a pretty blue state at this point. But I could see the margin getting down to the mid-single digits, maybe 6 to 7 points. How about under Colorado? Down in New Mexico, that would be a lean for Buttigieg. Probably 4 to 5 points. It's not as blue as Colorado. DeSantis would do decent there, but I still think Buttigieg would be able to hold on relatively comfortably. Let's go up to North Dakota and South Dakota. Those will be safe for DeSantis. How about Nebraska at large? That'll be safe for DeSantis. In that second district, there has since been redistricting since the previous presidential election. The district has gotten just a little bit redder, but the trends are definitely away from the Republicans in this district. Donald Trump actually won this district prior to redistricting by 2 points the first time, and in 2020 he did lose it by around 6. So given redistricting, given it's Ron DeSantis, it's tough for any Republican to win this kind of a district, but I will put it as a tilt for Ron DeSantis. I think he would just be able to eke out a win probably by a half a point or so. Kansas and Oklahoma, over 10 points, safe for DeSantis. Let's go to Texas. Texas usually gets a likely rating on almost all of my hypotheticals, and this is not going to be an exception. It will be a likely for DeSantis. Now, what would the margin be exactly? I don't know. If DeSantis actually puts together the coalition that he has the potential to and run up those margins where he could win this by over 10. Now, if he has a weaker showing and the trends are away from the Republicans, then this could get down to about 5 points. But I still think it would stay red for sure, even if DeSantis ends up putting up a weak campaign. Buttigieg would do strong in the areas he's expected to in Texas, but I think Ron DeSantis would be able to do a little bit better in some of these suburbs that may have trended and flipped toward the Democrats over the last couple of cycles. Let's go up to Minnesota. This I have as a lean for Buttigieg. Yeah, Donald Trump did get close to winning this in 2016, and Ron DeSantis is the Republicans' best chance. But until Minnesota actually does some statewide electing of Republicans, I still have to give it to pretty much any Democrat. I think Ron DeSantis would get this under a 5-point margin. Pete Buttigieg would probably run it up pretty well here in the Twin Cities suburbs. The legacy Democrats in those rural blue counties, I think enough of them would vote for Ron DeSantis this time, but Buttigieg is still going to win this by at least a few points. Let's go to Iowa. That will be a safe margin for DeSantis, over 10 points. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, also safe for DeSantis. Let's go up to Wisconsin. This is a lean for DeSantis. I think he would do just fine turning out the red Trump base. And in the suburbs, it would probably be about the same margin as it has been. And maybe support in Madison and Milwaukee would be down a couple points for Pete Buttigieg. And that would let Ron DeSantis win Wisconsin by 2, maybe even 3 points. Let's go to Illinois. That will be a low, safe margin for Buttigieg. If Buttigieg wipes out and DeSantis has an epic night, the margin could get down to maybe 9 points. Let's go up to Michigan. Tough call for me. The state does border Indiana. It's from the part of the country Buttigieg is from, that industrial rust belt that has drifted away from the Democrats. Most of that, I think, is on cultural issues. On a moderate amount of economics, they still do prefer the Democratic Party. Donald Trump, of course, won Michigan very narrowly in 2016. I think DeSantis could win it by a tilt margin under 1 point. But again, it'd be very close and could go either way. Now, how about in Indiana? That is Buttigieg's home state. Well, I have it as a safe for DeSantis. Now, could it get under 10 points? Yeah, if Buttigieg has an excellent night and DeSantis flops, then Indiana would go to DeSantis probably by 8 points. But in most reasonable scenarios, I think Indiana would go to almost any Republican by over 10 points. DeSantis is a strong Republican. He would carry it by double digits. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, those are deep red southern states, and they would easily stay safe for Ron DeSantis. Let's go to Florida. This would, of course, be Ron DeSantis' home state. If he did do this in 2024, he would be running in the middle of his second term as governor. So I'm not sure how that would play out. That would probably put off some people, and it would ignite others. And of course, Ron DeSantis won in a landslide for re-election, and the state is clearly trended toward the right. At a presidential level, it's usually close. I suspect most Republicans will have an easier time winning it going forward in the next couple of cycles. And it's Ron DeSantis. I understand an argument for a double-digit margin here, but I can't see it just yet for a presidential election, even though it is the best-case scenario. I have to put this as a likely for DeSantis. I would say 7 to 9 points, but that would still be a fantastic performance for Ron DeSantis in Florida. Let's go up to Georgia, another state that has trended toward the Democrats. Republicans seem to have a problem in the Atlanta suburbs, Cobb, Gwinnett counties. Georgia is a neighboring state of Florida. Maybe that helps Ron DeSantis slightly. Well, considering the trends of those suburbs and the rural red turnout, and Pete Buttigieg's lackluster performance with black voters, I have to give this to Ron DeSantis by a lean margin. Not sure of the margin, but it would be low single digits. South Carolina, safe for DeSantis. How about in North Carolina? This will be a lean for DeSantis, probably just under a likely margin, about 4.5 points, but it is possible it gets over 5. Now let's move up to Ohio. DeSantis is probably a pretty good fit here. Again, he would do well with a lot of those Trump voters that maybe have sat out certain elections without Trump on the ballot, and he is as of yet not as polarizing to get voters to come out to vote against him. So Ron DeSantis will win Ohio by a likely margin, probably high single digits. Over to West Virginia. That is an easy, very safe for Ron DeSantis. Let's move up to Maine. This has become a state that has been splitting its votes between the two congressional districts, one for the Democrat, one for the Republican, and I don't think it would be any different in this cycle. At large, I would say it's a lean for Pete Buttigieg. In the first district, that's a very blue district. That'd be just over 10 points safe for Buttigieg. The second district, that's become a much redder district, and people like Trump in that district. I think Ron DeSantis would do pretty well here. That would also be a safe margin for him. And at large, Donald Trump only lost the state by 3 points in 2016. That was possibly due to Gary Johnson being on the ballot. But overall, I think the margin would be close, maybe 4 to 5 points for Pete Buttigieg. Now, how about New Hampshire? It's another state that seems to be mostly in the column for the Democrats. The right Republican could win it. But New Hampshire is the reddest state here in the Northeast. And it was a tough call for me, but I did settle on a tilt for Ron DeSantis. I do think most Republicans are going to be unable to win New Hampshire unless something changes, but Ron DeSantis would probably be able to put enough together to win it by under 1 point. Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. are all safe for Pete Buttigieg. Now, a couple of these states do have the potential to get to a likely margin. New Jersey, possibly Delaware, Connecticut, or even Rhode Island. If the Democrat was especially weak and the Republican is especially strong, DeSantis is the stronger Republican. Buttigieg is not really the weakest Democrat, but I still think he would win all those by a safe margin. But I do think low double digits is where most of them would end up. Let's go to Pennsylvania. It's a close one for me, but I have it as a lean for Ron DeSantis, probably 1 to 2 points. And let's go to the last state, and that is Virginia, and that is a likely for Pete Buttigieg. I do think he would do well in Northern Virginia. The D.C. suburbs, they would come out for Pete Buttigieg, and that would overwhelm much of the rest of the state, where Ron DeSantis would do pretty well for a Republican. But it would still probably be a 6 to 7 point win for Pete Buttigieg. And that is my map, and that would result in 317 electoral votes for Ron DeSantis, 221 for Pete Buttigieg. So Ron DeSantis would win here. It's not necessarily the closest race, given that electoral gap. But Pete Buttigieg, he's really only 2 or 3 points away in a lot of these states from flipping them and then winning the entire election. So, as I've said, there's a lot of unknowns here. But I think Pete Buttigieg is trying to bridge the gap between the moderates and the progressives. I personally don't think he has much in common with the progressive side. And Ron DeSantis is trying to bridge that gap, similar to what Glenn Youngkin did between the Trump voters and the more establishment Republicans. I do think Ron DeSantis is a better candidate than Buttigieg. DeSantis has won statewide twice in a critical swing state. Buttigieg, to me, comes off as a little bit too consultant-tested. He does speak well, but on policy, I think Ron DeSantis would win out. And this is a potentially possible matchup, if not in 2024, maybe in 2028. You could make a case for some changes here. I understand that. There's different arguments to be made, but this is what I settled on, and let me know in the comments. Do you mostly agree with this map, or do you disagree on 4 or 5 of these states? Let me know down below. And if you enjoy this channel, on your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.